Welcome to CXE Math TV. And today we're going to be looking at quadratics, and we're going to chop it up in two parts. So today we're doing quadratics part 1. In quadratics part 1, we're going to be learning how to factorize quadratic expressions, solving quadratic equations by factorization, and solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. So ignore this. Right, so the first thing is we have to remember what is an expression. An expression is just a combination of numbers and variables with operations. 12 minus 6, 3 minus x, x squared plus 2x, g squared minus 5, 2gvt plus gt. These are all what? Expressions. Now, whenever we put the equal sign now and we equate two mathematical expression, that is known as an equation. So 12 minus 6 equal x, and that would lead us to x being 6. That's now an equation. 3 minus x equals 7 minus 4x. That's an equation. X squared plus 2x equals 3. That's an equation. Alright, because now we have two mathematical expressions being equated. Now, whenever the highest power is x squared, right? So for example, 5 minus x minus 2x squared. Whenever the highest power of the unknown variable is x, and there is no equal sign, that's a quadratic expression. Now, when there is an equal sign and the highest power of x is x squared, then this is known as a quadratic equation. So without the equal sign, quadratic expression. With the equal sign, quadratic equation. Now, this is a general form of a quadratic. The general form of a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This is the general form of a quadratic where a is your coefficient of x squared, b is your coefficient of x, c is your independent term, x is your independent variable, where a cannot be 0. This is a general form of a quadratic equation. I always try to put it in this form. Now, before you can identify what is represented by A, B, or C, you must first put it in standard form, meaning it must be equated to 0. So here are some questions we're going to do, right? So here we need to identify our A, B, and C for each of the following. So for the first one, it's straightforward, right? The quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. It's straightforward to tell us for the first one right here, a is 2, b is negative 11, and c is 14. That's straightforward. For the second one, a is what? 1, b is negative 16, and c is 63. You tell me, ignore C because A and C is the same thing. D. D, what is the value of A, B, and C? Alright, so notice we did A, we did B. Now C. Always remember you have to do what first? You have to rewrite it in standard form. Rewriting it in standard form, see here, remember it has to be written ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Remember that is standard form. So first thing we have to do is put it as minus 5x squared plus 3x plus 7 equal to 0. That way we get our a is negative 5, b is 3, and c is 7. For part D, again, notice there is no b term, so we have to put in a 0x, 0 as our placeholder. So a is 4, b is 0, c is negative 64. Now pause the video to E, F, and G. I'm just going to present to you the answers. E, F, and G, you should of course put it in standard form. So this one you should get your A is 3, your B is negative 1, and your C is 0. F, you should be getting your A is 3, your B is 1, and your C is negative 15. And down here you should be getting your A is 2, your B is 10, and your C is negative 11. That's it. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. How do you go about factorizing the following? Many of us know how to factorize the first one. The first one, right, we can take out what they have in common, which is x, and we have x plus 2. Second one, we can take out the highest common factor of 5, then we have 2x squared minus 1. The third one, we can take out 3x, and then we have x plus 2. But here's where we get into some issues, right? We run into some issues right here. We can't just look at it and say, well, all three have x in common. No. So as Cartel says, buck up inna. We run into some problems, right? How are we going to factorize that? So for the fourth one, we do not know the highest common factor. So in that case now, this is where we're going to have to now come up with a different method that we're going to have to use to factorize, these quadratic expressions. So whenever the quadratic expression is in standard form, we need a way how to factorize it, right? There must be a method, right? So any observations from the questions above? But if you're not seeing it, no problem. This is all you need to know. So I want you to take out your notebook, write it down. These are the steps that we're going to use to factorize now a quadratic expression. These are the steps we're going to use. Always remember them. The first step is to write down the value of a, b, and c. So from this example, you might write down a is 1 because this is 1x squared. Your b is 3 and your c is negative 10. The second step says you find the product of a times c. So 1 times negative 10 is negative 10. Then now you're going to ask yourself, find two numbers that satisfy the following. Which two numbers, when you times them, you get a times c, which is negative 10 in our case. And when you add those same two numbers, you should get the p-value of 3. So you have to now think about it and say, which two numbers when I times them I get negative 10, when I add them I get 3. Now you can always draw a little table to show you two numbers to times to get negative 10. It can be 1 and 10, it can be negative 1 and 10, or it can be maybe 2, negative 2 and 5, or it can be positive 1 and negative 10, or it can be positive 2 and negative 5, right? These are the possibilities. But need to remember when you add them, you should be getting 3. So when you add them, this would be giving you 9, this would be giving you 3, this would be giving you negative 9, this is negative 3. Which one added to give us 3? This one. So the two numbers in that case is negative 2 and positive 5. In that case, the next step says we replace the b term. So replace this now with the two numbers you found in number 3. So in that case, we're going to write x squared. Let me change the color. So this 3x, you're going to replace it with these two numbers now, minus 2x plus 5x minus 10. Now we have 4 terms and we're going to proceed to factorize. So just to re-show you the steps, all right, write down the values a, b, and c, multiply a times c, use those two numbers, then now we can proceed to factorize here. This part is easy now because then that part, we know to factorize this right here. So we continued it here. We know from the first two terms they have x in common. From the next two terms they have negative 2 in common. So when we factorize it, this would be our answer. So all of this would work out to be x plus 5 times x minus 2. Easy. So of course now, we're going to do some questions together, right? We're going to factorize some quadratic expressions. So the first one, part A, we have x squared minus x minus 30. First thing we set to do is write down A, which is 1, B, which is negative 1, and C, which is negative 30. The second step we do now is we need to multiply A times C, that's negative 30. Then the third step we say is ask ourselves which two numbers we times them, we get negative 30. But when we add them, we're going to get our B value, which is negative 1. Now, this might take a while for you to get it. Alright, no problem. Now, we know it has to be what? Two numbers, you're going to add them and get the negative 1. That look like negative 6 and positive 5. Now we're going to replace the middle term with those two numbers there, but put on the x, so negative 6x plus 5x minus 30. Now proceed to regular factorization. From the first two terms, they have x in common. From the next two terms, they have 5 in common. Then we can factor out x minus 6. So our answer is x minus 6 times x minus x plus 5. That's it. So this one worked out to be x minus 6 times x plus 5. The next one. The next one now, right? The next one now, let's do B here. We do what now? Write down A, 1, B, negative 19, C, 60. Then now we multiply A times C. 1 times 60 is 60. B is negative 19. Which two numbers with times them will get 60, but we'll add them will get negative 19. So we have to think about those two numbers. Clearly it is what? Couldn't be. Well, we know it couldn't be 20 and 3. So it could be what? Could it be 12 and 5? Couldn't be 12 and 5. Could it be 10 and 6? Couldn't be 10 and 6. So if you're in an issue where it's difficult, you can actually draw them out, right? Which two number you going to times and get 60? So we're looking at 1 and 60. You have 2 and 30. You have 3 and 20. You have 4 and 15. 4 and 15 add to give you 90. So it has to be what? Negative 4 and negative 15. In that case now, we'll replace this now with negative 4x minus 15x, right? Plus 60. From the first two terms, we take out x and we have x minus 4. From the next two terms, we take out negative 15 and we have x minus 4. This is just x minus 4 times x minus 15. That's your answer. So I want you to pause the video and do the rest for me now. Take 10 minutes, do C, D, and E. So just to give you the written out procedure for part A, there it is, the written out procedure for B. Now the written out procedure for C, here we go. This should have been your answer for part C. Did you get it? I don't know, you tell me, but this is your solution presented, right? So this explain detail. All right, part D now. This is what you should have gotten for part D as your answer and the detailed solution given. Finally, part E, this is what you should have been given. This is what you should have gotten and the detailed solution given. Nice. Now we need to look at solving quadratic equation using factorization. So to solve quadratic equation using factorization, what do we do? First step is always to put the quadratic equation in standard form. So meaning set it equals 0. The second step now is to factorize the left-hand side of the equation. Then you're gonna set the two factors and equate it to 0. It's always easier when you see it with examples. So here it is. For example, we're asked to solve this equation. X squared plus 2x equals 3. Look at step 1. Step 1 says to put it in standard form. So first thing is we bring over the 3 by subtracting 3 from both sides. Now we get it equal to 0. Step 2 now is to factorize the left side. We just learned how to factorize the left side. We have to write down our values for A, B, and C. So we wrote down our values for A, B, and C and realized that A was what? We realized that A was 1. Alright, the pen stopped writing. Give me a second. Let me fix that. So realize that A was 1, B was 2, and C was negative 3. From that, we identified now A times C, negative 3. But then we have to ask ourselves, which two number when we times them will get negative 3, but when we add them we'll get B, which is 2. B is 2, so those two numbers had to be 3 and negative 1. So now we're going to replace 2x with 3x and minus x. From that, we proceeded to factorize. After proceeding to factorize, we get x plus 3 times x minus 1 equal to 0. Then we're going to equate the x plus 3 to 0 and equate the x minus 1 to 0. So in that case, we're going to get x is negative 3 or x is 1. It's that easy. So now we're going to do some questions together. We're going to solve by factorization. So the first one, right? Maybe that was a little complicated. The first thing let's have to do is make sure it's in standard form. This one is already in standard form, so you just write 4x squared plus 10x plus 6 equals 0. Write down now your value for A, which is 4, your value for B, which is 10, your value for C, which is 6. A times C is 4 times 6, which is 24, and B is 10. Which two numbers you times them you get 24, but when you add them you get 10. So in that case, realize that those two numbers has to be 6 and 4. Alright, so it has to be 6 and 4. That's a given. So in that case, we're going to replace it now, the 10x with 4x and 6x equal to 0. From the first two, we realize we can factor out 4x, we're left back with x plus 1. From the next two, we can factor out 6 and we're left back with x plus 1. So when we factorize it, this is 4x plus 6 times x plus 1 equal to 0. Then the next step said you equate both factors now to 0. So we equate 4x plus 6 to 0 and we equate x plus 1 to 0. From that we're getting x is negative 1 and over this side is x is negative 6 over 4 or negative 3 over 2 if you simplify. Let's do part B and then you do C on your own. For part B, we have 4x squared plus 21x. We have to bring over the negative 5 to put plus 5 equal to 0. From that, what do we do next? Write down A, write down B, and write down C. Then we work out A times C, 4 5s is 20. Then we ask ourselves which two numbers with times and we'll get 20, but we'll add them and get the B value 21. That must be what? When we times 4 and 5, we got 20, but we'll add them, we'll get 21. Which two numbers? So anytime you can't see it straight away, do the little table. So you can start think of the two numbers at times to get 20. It could be 1 and 20, it could be 2 and 10, it could be 4 and 5. It could be what else? Now we realize when you times 1 and 20 and you add them, that gave you the 21, so it's 1 and 20. So now we can rewrite it as 4x squared plus replace the 21x with now x plus 20x plus 5 equals 0. Factor what they have in common. They have x, the first two in common. We have 4x plus 1. The next two have 5 in common and we have 4x plus 1. So in that case now we have x plus 5 times 4x plus 1 is equal to 0. So in that case we can equate x plus 5 to 0 or 4x plus 1 to 0. In that case x is negative 5 or x is negative a quarter. That's it. Easy, easy, easy. Just to give you the detailed solution, there it is for part A. The detailed solution for part B. Now I want you to go back now and do part C. Pause the video and do part C. Take 5 minutes, please. Pause it and do it. As you do part C, here's the detailed solution for part C. Alright? This is what you should have been getting. Nice. Okay, now quadratic formula. Now sometimes you can't factorize it, right? When it cannot be factorized, in a case you're going to use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is just a formula to remember to get your answer for x. This is the formula you're going to be using. X is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. You just need to remember that formula and you're good. So here it is now, using that formula, right? First thing is you put it in standard form. Once it's in standard form, you write down your A, B, and C. So from this example given on the screen, you can say our A is 3, or B is 5, and our C is negative 7. Then you're just going to pump it into this formula. So just pump it into the formula, minus B. So remember, B is 5, so minus B is minus. See here, substitute those values in the formula. B is 5, so minus B is now minus 5, sorry. plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 3 times c, negative 7, divided by 2a, which is 2 times a, which is 3. In that case now, when you pump it into the formula, right? You pump it into the formula. In that case now, you're going to get, oh, I hope you'd have seen the mistake, guys. Notice that b is 5 and I have negative 5 here. So really and truly, this should have been minus 5, right? So in that case right here, it should be minus 5, minus 5, minus 5. So these are not true. So we're going to check what the true answer should be. In this case now, you just pump it into the calculator, right? So you can take out your calculator and you pump it in. You have your minus 5 plus the square root of 109 divided by 6. Oh, actually, it is correct. It is correct, guys. All I did was just leave off the minus here. And then now, that's with the plus sign. Always remember, when you see this plus or minus, you have to do it with the plus first, then you have to then evaluate it with the minus. So when you change a plus to a minus, that gives you the next answer, the negative 2.573. Right? So in that case now, let me take this back off. In that case now, that's how we get our two answers. So now I want you to pause the video and solve these using the quadratic formula. We're going to do the first one together, and you do the second one on your own. It's very easy, it's very straightforward. First thing it says to do, you're solving minus x squared minus 6x plus 8 equals 0. First thing, write down a, negative 1, b, negative 6, c, which is 8. Then write down the formula. X is minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Plug it in the formula now. So minus negative 6 minus of negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times a is what? Negative 1 times c is what? 8 divided by 2 times a, and a is negative 1. So x works out to be negative of negative 6 is positive 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared is 36 minus negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4, and positive 4 times 8 is 32. So this is now what? Minus and minus, let it become plus, so this change to a plus. Divided by 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Now, if you're having issues, don't be afraid to put in your calculator. Don't take boosting, put in your calculator. You can work out this in your calculator. You can do this, minus 6 square minus 4 in bracket, negative 1 in bracket. Put in a calculator. That's how you get your 68, right? No problem. Don't take boosting. So in this case now we get 6 plus or minus the square root of 68 over negative 2. Now put that in our calculator. We're going to put in the one with the plus first. We'll put in the one with the minus next. Put in the one with the plus first, we get, let's do it, 6 plus square root 68 divided by negative 2. We get that as our answer, negative 7.12, or x is equal to, put the next one in our calculator, change a plus to a minus, and we get 1.12. We get x equal 1.12. Now, if you don't believe these answers, you can always check it. How do you check it? Let's check it. Check it, you can just check it and see if it's correct, right? So that means the negative of this answer squared minus 6 times the 1.12 plus 8. That should give us what? 0, don't? We did get our 0. So we know that this answer is correct. You can test it with the other one, you're going to get a 0 as well. So these are our answers, right? So the answer for the first one is x equal negative 7.12 or x equal 1.12. So factorization couldn't help us in this one, right? So there it is, the solution. Now pause the video and do the second one for me, please. Pause the video, do the second one. 5 minutes. So as you pause the video and do the second one, this is what you should have gotten using the quadratic formula. Alright, and that completes all you need to know for quadratics at the CSEC level. Alright, so that is it. Easy. Hope this video was beneficial. Make sure to just like and to subscribe. Right? Keep on practicing to get better at mathematics. Check out the website for more practice questions. Have a wonderful day.